Douglas County, the school district called out.
A judge ruling the district used public money to commission a report to illegally influence a last school board election. Now the district is appealing. Call 7 investigator John Ferrugia has obtained internal documents. John, you're finding district emails that seem to support the judge's point.
That's right, Ann. The district superintendent mailed a report to about 85,000 residents prior to the election, at one point calling that report a third-party review. It supported her educational and administrative plan. What she didn't say was that the district spent $35,000, half of it public money, to produce the self-serving report. It was a glowing report by Frederick Hess, who is an education scholar at the Conservative American Enterprise Institute, a report commissioned by the district.
What we wanted to get was an honest assessment from them, and that's what we felt we had.
Kevin Larson is the president of the Douglas County School Board. You believe that Frederick Hess's paper was an honest assessment?
That's what we engaged with. That's what we engaged them to do, was to scrutinize and look at our own programs and be honest in their assessment of what we engaged them to do.
But in fact, Hess makes it clear in the foreword of the district report it is not intended as an evaluation.
Well, I think the judge made it very clear that the report was a biased report and that public funds were used to influence the election. I think that's a big thing to overcome.
Julie Keim, who lost in the school board election, brought the complaint of political finance violations.
The largest section of the paper was a section entitled Electing a Reform Board. You know, I don't think you can get much more political than saying that.
There is no question that the administrative judge in the case agrees, writing, "The Hess report was not a third-party, unbiased study. To the contrary, the report was an endorsement of the reform agenda and explained the advantage of having a unified board to fuel that agenda." The ruling goes on to conclude the Hess report was purchased with public money to influence the outcome of the board election. But the school board president doesn't see it that way. He says the report was pointing out the obvious.
The Hess report, I can't speculate on what all of the elements that they were pursuing to do. I think they may have found it interesting that when you have a board that is able to be cohesive, it's amazing what things you can get done.
But district emails between Hess and his staff and the district's communication director, Cinnamon Watson, seem to tell a different story. Watson is a longtime political operative who has championed conservative causes and helped run Republican Jane Norton's unsuccessful Senate campaign. In an exchange with Watson, Hess's research assistant, Max Eden, asked to reduce the scheduled meetings and interviews required for producing the report. And it seems clear that he and his boss want to write exactly what the district wants written. Ideally, we would love for you all to help us help you. We can touch base as the date draws closer, but we would prefer not to go out there with a blank slate. He goes on to make his point clear. We would prefer it if you would tell us what you want us to focus on, what is most worthy of attention, what you'd like to see written about, and what your general angle on it and the paper is. And then he drives the point home. We encourage you to tailor our time out there to directed interviews with folks you want to make a particular point of in us meeting and writing about them.
Interpreting what the questions were going to be, I think there's a lot of ways you can interpret an email, and I think that's going to be a central element of the case as it goes to the court.
But for Julie Keim, there is no other interpretation.
So it was really a piece of political propaganda, and they were asking what they needed to do to please the district so that they could get this piece of propaganda out.
And that may or may not be true, but the question is, was it illegal use of public funds and did it violate fair campaign practices? Now, one judge has already said yes, the district says no, and an appeals court is going to decide. And it's interesting to note here that Julie Keim is not asking for a fine or damages that will cost taxpayers money. She says she just wants the truth and accountability. Live in the newsroom, I'm John Ferrugia, 7 News.